Since Maximus had stormed from Rome with a cadre of sympathetic officers, Italy had been invaded several times by Roman and barbarian alike. The numbers exceeded those Rex had used to take Rome himself, but his successful defences to the north and south suggested that he himself was worth a great many men. His renown became so great that another hero of the age followed the trail of news from east to west to meet the imperial magister. This traveller strode through the streets of Rome, keeping one eye on the forests of scaffolds and rubble all around him, and lacking for use of another. On the day of his arrival, Rex was meeting with Clodolf in the imperial palace, discussing the idea of sending emissaries to pry the other Roman factions away from Maximus. "We struggle to convince our own men to follow us, and they will have no clout with the rebels," Clodolf was saying. It was true. Rex lacked any credible way to parley with his enemies, as did the Emperor. Who could possibly be so silver-tongued that they could soothe the offence of Regni's presence in court, and bind up the wounds of 2 successive civil wars across the whole empire? As they frustrated over the matter, there was a commotion at the doors. Then they burst open, spitting forth a sprinting man trailing a spear behind him, pursued by a mix of urban and praetorian soldiers. The guards in the hall jumped into action, clamping themselves together in a shield wall in front of Rex. The intruder leapt mightily into the air as he reached them. The soldiers raised their shields to block a descending blow, but instead the man made a scraping kick against them, propelling him over the line entirely. Rex already had a sword in his hand, and with its quiet flash the attacker's spear was broken in 2. The follow-up swipe was halted at the last moment, with steel on skin, as Rex looked aghast at the man tumbling before him.
"It's him!"
Clodolf breathed.
"I'm back,"
the man announced, holding up a hand to halt the guards as if he commanded them. Rex hurriedly stopped them himself.
"Bagadata, what are you doing?"
he asked.
"Legends in the west, legends in the east. I come for 2 reasons. To seek the truth of the matter, and to grow these legends into the tale of a new world."
The guards were still on edge, but Rex assured them again that they could stand down. The pursuing soldiers stood around awkwardly as Rex and Bagadata sat at the strategy table.
"What happened to Armenia?" Rex asked. "My time there is done."
"Then who is king?"
"I provided adequate replacement. There is a man in the mountains there who can change one's face to look precisely like another. Magic, they say. Therefore, just as I was the spitting image of their king, I provided another. Not a whisper of suspicion among anyone.
And I guess I don't need to ask how you got in here."
"I can be very convincing,"
Bagadata smiled. Clearly as proud of this so-called fact as Rex was skeptical, it did give the Magister an idea. "You want to save the Empire, then?" Rex said. Bagadata's eyes lit up.
"I live for no other purpose. Oh, except for serving you, a worthy Eagle Master," he said.
"Well, then," Rex said, noting a look of horror on Clodolf's face. Well, here goes nothing." Hello there and welcome back to Rex Romanum. So yes, Bagadata is back. I've given himself to me using a few cheats, and I've also leveled him up a bit and given him some persuasion skill, because I happen to really need someone to be an emissary. It's similar to the deal when I got Clodolf back. You have to have companion characters do certain things in your empire, so Clodolf is the guy who lets you send emissaries out, and then Bagadata will be the guy who is the emissary. So now we can talk to other factions, and we can use this to potentially end some of our many wars. To start things off, we'll send Bagadata to the Sarmatians, since we recently defeated them. Maybe they'll want to get a truce with Rome. All we do now is wait to see what comes of that. I also made Verus into our faction's strategist. The reason behind this was that it allows us to make friends with Verus in a convenient way, because when your strategist calls a campaign, just showing up makes them like you a fair bit. And as we've seen before, when a strategist calls a campaign, they often don't actually have any ideas, they just do it. So now, we don't really have to do anything as part of the campaign, we just follow Verus around for a bit, he walks towards Rome, and eventually the campaign will be called off. Plus, on the way, Bagadata gets back from the Sarmatians, and he tells us that they want to continue the war, and he tried to convince them but apparently was unsuccessful. He is only level 6, I think, in Persuade, so he could be better. Maybe we'll hack it up a little bit higher to see if it makes any difference in the future. For now, we'll just send him off on another mission in a second, and there's the end of the campaign. Get a load of experience, and once again Verus will be able to call the campaign, making him like us even more. Once we get back to Rome, I'm going to send Bagadata to Armenia, with which we are apparently at war, so we'll see if the game wants to follow my own law, in that Bagadata should have lots of influence in Armenia. And in these times of peace, all I'm doing in these delays is going right back to Syracuse once again, because we've got business to attend to aside from the campaign of Verus, although it is still to do with Verus. There's a feast going on down here, so not only can we make small talk with our minor officers, but of course Verus' daughter, Juliana, who lives in Syracuse, will be attending the feast, and this is a perfect chance for us to flirt with her a bit more. I thought you might be able to increase your relationship with your regular officers by just talking to them after winning battles. Maybe that was in other mods or in vanilla. For whatever reason, our guys aren't especially impressed at Rex's victories recently. And Juliana isn't impressed that we've just showed up. Because it's a feast, the way to improve your relations with the women in the hall is to first win a tournament and then go back and talk to them about it. So, we're going to do what you always have to do if you want to seduce someone. You get your clothes off, get your sticks out, and you start slapping away, and by that I of course mean we're going to win a tournament and dedicate it to Our Lady's honour. Things don't start very well. Rex immediately falls over with his first swing. This is quite embarrassing. Hopefully she's not actually watching, but we do go on to win this first round. Towards the end of it, I couldn't help but notice that Aithna is fighting with us, and she does also appear to be a man, curiously. That sort of thing was extremely frowned upon back in the day, but perhaps Rex will be more accommodating. Anyway, let's see if we can get to the end and see what Juliana thinks. As the crowds cheered the winner of the bouts, Rex released the clasps on his full-face helmet and let it fall to the ground. There was a gasp, and then an even greater cheer as the people saw the saviour of Syracuse standing before them, drenched in the most Roman of glories. None dwelled on his barbarian origin in a moment like that, although pangs of embarrassment would follow the jubilation of some. As his back-in-work fight manager Eadfrith collected coin from the stands, Rex rushed up the stairs to the long dining hall adjoining the arena. Several nobles and distinguished gladiators were dining there, including Verus, who had come face to face with Rex early in the bouts and been given a swift exit. On a couch in a shady corner was Juliana, attended to by handmaidens who blocked Rex's approach. The lady let him through, and he knelt before her. "My lady, did I not say that I would win the tournament if the gods wished you to favour me?" he said. This was no Bagadata-sponsored winking seduction strategy, but an Agasiclede-sponsored hero angle. "You did say that, and clearly the gods were as pleased with the proposition as I," Juliana said, offering Rex a hand. He kissed it, only almost losing his balance as he stretched out, and only feeling a light pain on his cheek as the memory of so many similar attempts in the Massilia tavern surfaced. His face formed a pained expression, but luckily Juliana did not see it, for she was looking at her handmaidens, who were in turn trying to get their own faces to convey the strongest concern their low stations would allow. "Oh, I think you should go," she said. "I had hoped..." Rex said. He was going off script now. "I think the guests wouldn't like to see you with me, given my rank," she said. Rex was taken aback at the sudden appeal to hierarchy, but Juliana's smile told him that things weren't really so simple. Then if the gods still wish you to favour me, let me win the next bout also," he announced. An hour later he returned, with a second victory garland on his head. This time he was waylaid by various officers seeking advice on official matters. Yet he spied Jolanna's delight in the distant corner. Who knows what might have happened that day had the games been staged a third time? I went back to Rome to find trouble. One of our villages has been destroyed while we were away, and apparently no one told us. I guess that means Syracuse is too far away to be in message range of Rome, which is annoying. Bagadata returned saying that he couldn't get peace with himself / his clone or whatever's going on in Armenia. And then, after heading north, we discover it's a Gaetulian force currently invading us. 2 small armies that together don't quite match our numbers, so I felt happy enough to dive into combat. Although in this case I'm going to let them go for a second so that they're far away enough from the village that we don't end up in a village battle, and then we get our field battle instead. This was one of these fights where the enemy just charge at you right at the beginning, so we are suddenly swarmed with cav and camels before I can form up, and my own cav have to try and fend them off. My formations had some issues in this fight, because while I was trying to form a square on the side of this hill, you can see in the bottom left it interpreted that order as to charge and attack the enemy's skirmishes because of the unique tactics system that's part of this mod. And so my men have just run off and we're not going to defend the hillside. I myself was distracted by some cavalry coming to attack our little position up on the hill where my retinue was standing. So I just stayed here for a moment and fought with these guys while I let my men and cav just do whatever they can out there. And by the time I actually come back to the battle, they seem to have cleared things up quite a lot. The enemy skirmishers had come out ahead of their main body of infantry and gotten themselves killed fighting my infantry and cav, and you can see the rest of the infantry now coming in a block behind them. So I was now able to form up and get a square on square action thing going. I charged around the back and actually I think there took out their leader with a cheeky slash. Then my cav come in to seal the deal. We're going to start slashing wildly away at the block, and I'm just going to sit here now. I'm pretty confident in the armour of my horse and the armour of Rex that we can actually sit in melees and just slash away without taking very much damage, even though we are taking a few hits. And indeed, the enemy force is quickly destroyed, not really by me, but by the attack from all sides coming in. They start to rout and we chase them off the field to pick up all the kills, and finally the battle comes to an end. It was pretty scrappy because we didn't have those formations at the beginning. We lost a load of cav, but as I mentioned, that's sort of okay because getting caravan cards back is surprisingly easy. We usually end up with a surplus of them, and we did capture one of the enemy officers, so we'll keep him to stop him from invading us again for a little bit. I went straight back to Rome to send Bagadata off to speak to the king of the Gaetulians. Not sure if winning a battle really gives you an instant amount of clout in the negotiations, but seems like if they're gonna accept peace just after losing would be a good time for them to do it. Since I was now aware that Rome isn't sending messages to all parts of even Italy when it gets attacked, I started building messenger posts everywhere to try and increase the security of our position. After a while, Bagadata comes back and reports that the Gaetulians do still want to fight us, and he was unable to persuade them, so that's the end of that dream. Maybe one day someone will accept peace with us. It's not going very well so far. Then news that Genua in the northwest has been destroyed. That's not even that far away. Maybe it doesn't tell me about that place being attacked because it's technically not Rex's. I think it might belong to Verus, in fact, who owns Ravenna. Anyway, we move up there and discover it's a Roman force from Spain that is trying to invade here. We've got nearly double their numbers, so I'm happy to fight this guy, but he was willing to negotiate surrender actually. He really likes Rex in particular, and I think it's because Rex has a really high reputation stat, and certain characters admire people with reputations, and it increases your base relationship, and apparently can increase it all the way to 100, so that's a good start. However, long story short, after all the negotiations, he eventually said he wanted to remain loyal to his current leader, the owner of Roman Hispania, so we are going to have to fight him. Our two infantry squares moved close to each other while I sat there with my cavalry right on the enemy's flank, just waiting to charge them at point blank range. Luckily it seems they didn't notice. As the infantry go in, I ordered the cav to go take out the archers in the back first, but as we'll see, they're actually just going to charge right into the inf. And while I was micromanaging that, the enemy's cav somehow ended up behind me without me really paying any attention and started attacking my retinue. Luckily they didn't have very many cavs, so we were able to hold them off back there. And now everything's going crazy here in the main infantry fight as our cav attack just as the enemy appear to rout for a few seconds at least, trying to escape the battle. Then once they're stuck, they get back into it and start trying to fight for their lives. My infantry are holding off because they don't actually have orders to attack, so I have to get them to push slightly into the melee. Once that's arranged, we simply begin the slaughter. The enemy are cut down as they start to rout once again, and very soon we end up with this result. We lost only 7 men if you don't count caravan guard, the enemy lost their whole army, and we did capture the enemy commander. So a relatively easy affair, another invasion turned away, and with that we've got a decent week or so of peace with which to attend to a few items of business. The heralds of the imperial palace announced the arrival of one General Maximus, fortunately not the one who was cause for concern. It was Rex's benefactor, Lunus Maximus of Massilia, the man who commanded all the Roman forces in northern Europe. Rex was eager to receive his salute and his news. "I take it my kinsman's been giving you trouble," Lunus said. "I tracked an army passing by Massilia 2 weeks ago. The messenger I sent to warn you came back early, saying he had come upon the scene of a great battle. Then I just knew I had to visit for myself." "I welcome you eagerly. I know that more than anyone, you've always been a loyal servant of the Emperor. That is why you helped me in seasons past, isn't it?" "That? And I thought you didn't deserve the scorn of the rest of those dogs. Were I younger, I likely would have joined them, so don't praise me too highly," Lunus said, helping himself to a seat on the corner of the dining table, being prepared to mark his arrival. Rex was taken aback, yet impressed by his honesty, and stood from the throne to go and sit opposite him. "My kinsman visited me a couple of months ago, when this new madness started. The questions he asked me then still echo among my own staff daily. Will I recognize the Emperor's will as legitimate? They put it in much harsher terms, not fit for this hall, I'm sure you understand. It's time to have the answer to that question in writing." Lunus proposed a treaty that would announce a bond between Rex, Aurelius and Lunus as the cornerstones of the Roman Empire. It was a huge step in bringing the civil war to an end, and was celebrated with copious food and drink in the hours to follow. Amid the festivities, another visitor arrived, storming in well before the herald could call out his name. It was Verus, and he stomped right up to Lunus and Rex. "You've been talking to my daughter again, haven't you?" he shouted at Rex. Rex stuttered an attempted reply before Lunus said, "Shall I expect a wedding invitation?" Verus's eyes flared up. "You can stay out of Roman business, foreigner." "No, Lord Verus, he is on our side," Rex said. "Yes, and that is why he waited to see if my family would be destroyed before he showed his face. Quite the ally." He waved for Rex to come away from the table, and the Magister obliged. "I decide what is best for Juliana, not you. You went behind my back, and so anything you have arranged with her is invalid. You hear me?" "I hear you," Rex said with appropriate meekness. It was hard not to be sullen, for he truly did enjoy the company of that Sicilian girl, the one the bachelors of Italy called the Southern Venus. Verus should have known that when faced with loss, Rex was not the kind of man who would back down. With no invasions to deal with at the moment, I wanted to find that annoying bandit base somewhere in southeast Italy to stop all those guys from spawning, but I got news that an invasion has started while I was looking, after not finding it of course, so I headed back towards Florentium to try and stop the enemy attack, but I didn't arrive in time. The village has already been destroyed. It wasn't even a very big force. Some 70 barbarians from the Suebi have attacked. Had to chase them for a while, but eventually we pinned them down for a battle. They charged us right away, so didn't really have time to get the formation going, and ended up bringing the cav in front of the army to act as a screen, since the enemy cav were just charging at me. That hopefully protects the archers. The fight that ensues is a bit confusing because both sides have loads of caravan guard. In fact, I have loads and loads and loads of caravan guard, of course, and it's just hard to tell what's going on. We've got way more guys than them, so we're going to win in the end, but for me to contribute, it's a bit difficult. Have to actually focus on what guys are definitely enemies. We cut those cav down, and then I bring my own cav back behind our lines as the enemy infantry start to approach. My own infantry have now arrived and lined up so we can get ready for a regular fight. And here the enemy just don't have that many men, plus they're out-teched by my troops. We're much heavier than them, so we just charge in, not going to bother using the whole box formation thing. We'll go for them, and very quickly we slaughter the enemy, and that brings an end to the battle. We only lost one guy, counting the guys that matter. and we took out the entire enemy army and took their commander captive. Very handy, we'll make some money off that eventually. Then as I headed back towards Rome, I got some news from Bagadata. We're not going to be able to get non-aggression with Roman Illyricum, which is what I was trying to do recently. We're not at war with them anymore, which is nice, but my vague objective is to get non-aggression with all of the Roman factions to signify everyone agreeing to the status quo. Roman Gallia are already on board, as we saw earlier. As I went into Rome to visit the tavern, some people have the audacity to attack me, so clearly my authority over both the city of Rome and the Empire isn't complete, because the other Roman officers won't all listen to me, and the people are trying to kill me. In this case, we killed them in short order. Bagadata's next mission was to go to the Suebi. I'm doing this thing where every time someone invades, I immediately offer them peace after their invasion fails, to see if they will take it. Then I go back to searching for this base, and once again it's proving elusive. You do have to walk pretty much right over its location in order to discover it. So if anyone in the comments happens to know where it is, do let me know. Someone might have done so already. At some point I'd like to find it and then deliberately fail an attack against it, because we saw before it makes it go away, at least for a while, if you do that. Rex comes back with news that the Suebi do not want peace with us. That's particularly annoying. There's only one thing that can make up for this disappointment, and that is to sneak into Syracuse in the dead of night in order to continue violating Verus' orders to leave his family alone. So we sneak into his house by dressing up as a maid or something. Once we're in, Julana is not fazed by our disguise, and we can continue our little courtship. Or can we? Looks like Julana has been betrothed to one of the other Roman officers, Pertinax, and she even suggests that maybe we shouldn't see each other anymore in these circumstances, so she is willing to go against Verus' wishes, but now that she's actually engaged to someone else, maybe that's a bit too much. However, we can just insist that there is still a chance. There was also the option there to elope, but you can't do it because she just says she's too dignified or what have you to be eloping. She is a woman of class, so we're going to have to do this through some kind of official channel and try to break her up with Pertinax to continue the relationship. We do have a backup plan going. Rex is a clever boy, so he's also been gradually courting Claudania. This is the sister of one of the other Roman officers who's hanging about in Rome, so it's much more accessible. We actually have this guy, Pompeianus' permission to engage with Claudiana, so that's a more legitimate relationship going on in the background if everything falls through. While I was back in Rome, we got news of another invasion, but it was just a small one this time. It's a group of Gaetulians with some 30-something guys. I charged out over the hills to go and take a look at them, and it's mostly a little block of infantry, as we can see there. But their commander was very exposed outside of the block, so we deal with him in short order. I got stabbed trying to get near the block, so I decided I'm not going to try and solo them, which I was at that point for some reason. Let's actually bring in the army. We quickly crush them between a massive horde of heavy infantry and caravan guard. And that's the end of that guy, and we even take him prisoner, so he won't be back anytime soon. After that I got news that there was a feast going on in Syracuse, and I thought, well, this is surely Verus' doing. He wants to announce the engagement or something, so I'm going to rush down there to try and intervene in some way, and we'll start off with that particular scene in the next episode. With Roman Gaul pledging to aid the central Roman dynasty, security should have improved. But warbands from the far north and far south were somehow making it into Italia undetected. Furthermore, the pretender Maximus remained hidden. He and his friends had not lost their taste for destroying the centre of their own empire quite yet, but at the same time, Rex was giving them serious problems, just as the Emperor had hoped. So that is all for now. Thank you very much for watching, and special thanks to all of the OfficiallyDevin patrons. In between his unpopular attempts at courtship, Rex has more invasions to push back, and a journey to make in order to claim a vast fortune in the next part of Rex Romanum.